Hello and welcome to The Curtain Raiser, the season premiere of the Eyetest FC, where we tell it how we see it. Samar?
Cheers.
Yes.
Here we go.
Here we go. Well, I'm Arjun and I'm an Arsenal fan, as you can see. I started supporting Arsenal in 2009-10. However, it wasn't supposed to be that way. I had a lot of friends around me who were United fans, and they just begged me to watch United play, basically, and to start supporting United. And honest to God, hand on heart, I cannot tell you who United played on the first game of the 2009-10 season because I fell asleep at halftime. It just felt very boring to watch. And later that day, I just switched on the TV to watch Arsenal play. Pure coincidence. And it just so happened that Arsenal won that game 6-1 against Everton away from home. And Everton in those days, tricky ground to play at.
Goodison.
Goodison Park, very difficult.
Mikel Arteta was probably there.
Arteta was there at Everton that time, wearing the number 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Under David Moyes. And what I felt like just caught my eye, I connected with so much, was the fact that the captain of that Arsenal team who just demolished Everton was a 19-year-old.
Fabregas.
Fabregas. That was my first football jersey. I just loved how Arsenal played. It had nothing to do with trophies, nothing to do with, or the lack of trophies, nothing to do with like anything else. It was just so nice to watch. And I couldn't watch another game of football for 90 minutes. That's how it all started. And I read more and more about Arsenal as the years went by, and now I'm pretty into it. What about you?
On the contrary, as you probably cannot see, I'm a Liverpool fan. But for me, it was a 24-year-old Steven Gerrard in 2005 on a night in Istanbul, working a miracle against one of the greatest sides to have played the game. And I became a Liverpool fan that night because of my brother, my elder brother, who was a Liverpool fan, and then I just followed. And after that, after the FA Cup final, it was a bit of a downhill, I would say so. My childhood was pretty rough.
Bad days at school.
Bad days at school, but better ones at college once Klopp came in, and now we're in a new era.
Yeah.
So let's see how it goes. But speaking of, so how do you feel about the start of the new season?
Well, here we are, right? Start of the new season again. It's the big reset. All 20 teams start at the same amount of points. Except Everton, who have an FFP transgression again for the third time.
Probably deserve it.
Did he mention he supported Liverpool? Anyway, I think this is the first time that not all 20 teams start at the same amount of points, right?
I don't think that's ever happened.
No? Yeah, probably not. But I think for the other 19 teams, it's hope springs eternal, right? Like, big reset, it's a summer. It's just great vibes everywhere. Like, and my mood personally is just going to be dominated by an intense Spanish guy.
And
Right.
by a Dutch ball guy, which is, I guess, better than an angry German, but we'll find out.
So much has happened in the last 2-3 months. It feels like a quiet summer in the case of transfers. But if you think about it, like elite centre back Todibo rejected Champions League football at Juventus to join West Ham. Zubimendi was shown a PowerPoint presentation to stay at Sociedad and reject a certain Premier League club.
Moving on.
I won't say. But wait, something we can agree with, right?
It's too soon.
Something we can agree with. Man United's transfer policy is basically ex-Ajax or Dutch. That's it.
Or just vibes.
But just vibes, yeah. For the Arsenal, Arteta hired a team of pickpockets.
Yeah, what's up with that? What's up with that?
Because he wanted to teach the team the value of togetherness, the value of being sold. Those are the foggingest standards, guys. Those are the foggingest standards. I love this guy. Yeah, and you know, on a more like somber, serious note, away from the pitch, Newcastle, the richest club in the world, owned by the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, they cannot sign a single player because of FFP. And on the other hand, Man City, who just did not the quadruple, but 4 times in a row league title.
Yeah.
They signed a winger, like they signed Savinho, who got Girona to the Champions League for 27 million.
That's a steal.
Should steal or 116 charge?
We'll see how the 15 go end of
It's
January.
2 minutes in and you're causing controversy. No, but I think we should move on to what the meat of the episode is, right? Like we're here to talk about our season predictions and directly the $1,000,000 question, Samar. Who are the champions?
I have a pretty safe pick for the champions, which is City. I just think till Pep is in the Premier League, I would say that City will like keep winning. I think they're in a good position. But I can see that you have a contrary a little smirk.
It's Bournemouth.
Is it?
No, as much as I love Iraola, if Arsenal have an 8 on 10 window, they're champions, irrespective of what City do. And I don't think Arsenal are there yet because they've only signed Calafiori. But they have the trust built over the last 5 years since Ronquist took over
Mhm.
that in the next 15 days of the window, they will sign players to plug the gaps that are in the squad.
Okay.
And I'm confident that adding the Mikel Merino, the highest duel winner in Europe, Calafiori, who impressed in the Euros, but also an excellent season with Bologna under Thiago Motta,
Mhm.
plus probably a winger, is enough to basically bridge that gap to City. And I do think that Arsenal have closed the gap last year. Most amount of goals scored, least amount of goals conceded. They were the best team on paper, but being the best team on paper does not win you the league.
Fair enough. So what makes the rest of your top four?
The rest of my top four. City, of course, second. Like, I think those are the safe two picks.
Okay.
I think Liverpool, despite not signing anyone, have had an amazing preseason. They just look fluid. I think under Klopp, their transition team, gegenpressing transition team has moved to a more possession-based style, and I think they have the players suited to develop and adapt.
Mhm.
So while changes might be important, I think they have enough of a team with the new manager bounce to, kind of pip to third.
Yeah.
And I do think, maybe a bit controversial, maybe a bit left field, that Aston Villa will retain their Champions League spot.
Okay.
That's my top four. Yeah.
Okay. For me, I think this is where I get a little unsafe, where I'm gonna say that Liverpool finished second, over Arsenal. I just think that's for two reasons. Again, like you said, it has got a lot to do with the end of the window. I say this hoping, with considering FSG, there is little hope, but hoping that we sign another number six, a good centre back, and a good winger as a backup, to Salah or Diaz on either side. Someone that can come in and make a mark the way Jota came in for Firmino back in the day. But I would still say that the reason why I have them over Arsenal is because I feel like 2 years not winning the title, it's hard to keep going again. And I say that as a Liverpool fan that has seen it from 2017 to 2024, 2023 under Jurgen Klopp.
Yeah.
Where it's really hard to keep going again. I just feel like it takes a toll on the players' mental health.
Okay.
In a sense of like, this is my gut feeling that, again, like you said, obviously it is, if you get those reinforcements to spark up the squad, I think it's amazing. But like, you need 90 points to win.
Who's fourth for you? Because you said, like,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
assume
So-
you
so-
Arsenal third. I hope.
Yeah, no. So Arsenal will be third, and I would actually, I'm gonna go for Spurs fourth. I think where Angie has come in last year, the start was really good, and then after that he has come in with, at least he has a certain sense of identity. I would like to say that the kind of football he's playing at the end of the season, the defensive aspect of it had a lot more flaws. The game was like, it was very open, especially if you look at the Chelsea Spurs game from last year, or even the Liverpool game. But I feel like he has the fans, other than the slight blip that he had with the top four comments last year against, especially when it came to the game against Arsenal. But I feel like he has a certain identity of football that he wants to play. I think for Villa, it's also going to be much harder with Europe in the picture. You saw that with a club like Brighton last year, where they had Europa. This is the Champions League. You saw that with Newcastle. So I think it's going to be a little hard to manage. I get where you're coming from. Watkins is an amazing player. Emery is an amazing manager. Like, but I think Villa do fall short over there, and I think Spurs can capitalize.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think makes Europa?
I think Tottenham makes Europa. I believe there's still a gap between fifth and the other teams. I think the other teams are still in transition.
Okay.
I think Chelsea are in massive transition. I think Man United are trying, but I think every manager has a ceiling. And I genuinely believe Ten Hag's ceiling is Ajax.
Okay.
In the sense, he wants to replicate what he did at Ajax with Man United. And I don't think what he did at Ajax is enough to win the Premier League with Man United.
You know, he has more trophies than Arteta has with Arsenal, right?
Yeah, okay, but like if you ask me if I would rather watch Arsenal play in the last 2 seasons or
Sure.
United, look, this is a trophies versus
Yeah, exactly.
like, and I know it's a bit
And
like
I'm just saying that to
No, I know.
stir the pot a little bit.
It's very well stirred, but like you're
But
saying,
but the reason I laugh is because I go with Chelsea. I think Chelsea is one team where, including Chelsea fans, I think absolutely nobody knows what the fuck is going on. I don't think.
they have 9 goalkeepers, bro.
Yeah, the amount of players they have is actually insane.
And you've won with Chelsea fifth.
But I would still say Chelsea fifth because I think if you like, it's really hard, right? Because I would say the end of last season they finally got a grip and they were like playing better football. They had like engaging into a certain sense of identity, and now they've removed Pochettino.
Yeah, they sacked their manager who did that.
Exactly. So now it's gonna be hard to see the kind of football they play. But again, like I said, just very gut feeling. Moving on from Chelsea on the latter half.
That's a good transition because what I was saying as my biggest like underachievers this season is Brentford. I personally think they're the 3 most innovative teams in the Premier League.
Okay.
Arsenal, City, and Brentford are the 3 most innovative teams in the Premier League. Pep has learned from it. Arteta has learned from it. I think
Thomas Frank.
we learned from Brentford's strategy, Moneyball approach, and what I genuinely believe is I just don't like saying this, and because I love them so much, I cannot pick that they're relegated.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. If they're
I cannot no, but
getting relegated.
But I think they're going to go from comfortable mid-table European contenders.
But
to,
when have they been there?
I believe that they have the potential to do that.
Okay.
And I think in their first season they played such attractive football. I think now they'll be in a relegation because I think there are so many teams in the mid-table who are going to compete for Europe. I think they will want to consolidate mid-table. And mentally, when you want to consolidate mid-table and you have a couple of losses here and there, you're in a relegation battle. I just hate seeing a team as innovative, as revolutionary as Brentford being in that position.
Fair enough. I think I would like if we're speaking of disappointments, I would go for Newcastle. I think where they were about 2 years back in terms of the top 4 finish, and obviously there are factors. There's the FFP, there is the burden of not being able to do what City did. But I feel like they're just going to fall further behind.
What do you consider a failure for Newcastle?
I think they finish about 8th or 9th, which I think is a disappointment for them considering where they were 2 years ago. I just don't think that they have it in them to finish above the likes of the top 5 that we discussed, or even like I would have Villa
above them.
Yeah, definitely. I would have Villa above them. I would even maybe have like I think United also finishes 7th or 8th. I do pick United over Newcastle as well. I just think they're going to have a tough time. It's not going to be as easy as new ownership gets you. And I think they're going to have a tough time in terms of finding their identity. It's also hard because I do predict this because if in case Eddie Howe moves to England, then I really that's definitely a factor, right? Like in terms of if he becomes the next England manager. So it is a little view of that as well. But that would be a surprise now, wouldn't it?
So going to who I think is going to do well, right? Like the biggest overachievers this season.
Yeah.
For me, it's between West Ham, Aston Villa, Bournemouth, and Crystal Palace. And I genuinely am only picking Aston Villa here because I feel that they're going to break that juggernaut of top 6 and be in the Champions League place.
Okay.
And I understand that they've lost Douglas Luiz, who's a huge linchpin in their midfield, but they've replaced him with Onana. They've gotten 60 million from Moussa Diaby, who is kind of was looking chipped in with a lot of goals and assists, so the stats look great.
Yeah.
But if I watched Villa games last season, Leon Bailey had a bigger impact.
Okay.
And I think they've replaced Leon Bailey. They've got back Ross Barkley, who was a shining light with Luton. And I know it's a gamble me saying this, but Emery is a specialist in Europe.
That's what I was going to come to.
With being in the Champions League, I'm not saying he's going to get far, but I think he's going to be able to handle European football. And
That's why I think I would go the contrary, because I think that Emery is a quality manager when it comes to knockout competitions. Like he got Arsenal also to the Europa League final. He's won plenty with Sevilla. Where I think that he like exceeds Aston Villa's expectations in Europe, where Aston Villa exceeding their expectations will be getting out of the group stage and maybe making the round of 16, depending on the draw, maybe a quarters. Again, the team they draw. But I feel like he's going to do much better in Europe than he will in the Premier League. I think it's going to be hard for them to manage both of them. And
so I agree, because I agree in the sense that I agree they'll do well in Europe. But I do feel that they now have the squad with the reinforcements that they've bought in to also do well in the Premier League. And that's why I feel like they're going to be getting that fourth position. But I do think there's going to be a gap between top three and Villa.
Fair enough.
Because the other teams are in transition.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, speaking of reinforcements, then my surprise, I think, would be Chelsea. Again, like finishing fifth, I think would be, considering where they're at right now. Yeah, I think finishing fifth for Chelsea would be a relative miracle, right? So I think that would be my surprise. In terms of a player, again, coming back to Brentford, and like obviously
who's your like biggest surprise player, right?
So if I have Brentford relegated, I still feel like Fabio Carvalho, who we just sold to Brentford. I think he has so much talent. Yeah, it's official. He's a Brentford player. It's about 27 million, including the add-ons, which is a great deal for him. Like if you look at the money and the time of football that he's actually spent playing on the field. But I just feel like it hurts in the sense of the potential that the lad had. Like if obviously preseason is not the biggest judgment, but even if you see his games against Arsenal or even the likes of United, I think the boy showed a lot of promise. I think it was too hasty a decision, and again, this comes back to FSG, the fact that we have to always sell to buy, and in this case, we sold a car to not even buy a Zubi. Like I think it was done to raise funds for that transfer, and eventually it fell out, and now but coming back to Kyle, I think he's a very bright boy. And I think now in a team like Brentford, where he can really, adapt to that system and become their star boy like he was at Fulham, I think he can really perform well.
Yeah, I remember watching Liverpool Newcastle last year, and he scored, right?
Yeah, he scored the winner.
And he scored, and I just felt like he was one of those players who was signed from like relative obscurity and performed really well at Liverpool.
Yeah.
I also think Everton will have a relatively good season despite their FFP transgressions. I think Sean Dyche is doing an excellent job with the Everton team. Okay. And I think if you ask Sheffield United fans how Iliman Ndiaye played in the championship before he was sold to Marseille, they would basically rave about it. Sean Dyche is seasoned enough to know that this is a guy who can make it. He is someone who is going to carry Everton to safety. And I don't mean 16th, I mean 12th position. I'm just purely basing this on the delta in positions based on the impact a individual player has. Sure. And I think he makes the largest in the Premier League bucket.
On the other hand, who would be your disappointment then?
For an Arsenal fan to say this about a Tottenham player, I really respect James Maddison. I really liked how he played at Norwich.
You think he's going to be the big, like after last season?
I think he's going to be a big disappointment this season, not because of who he is as a player and what he brings to the team.
Yeah.
But because of me feeling like Postecoglou is going to get found out.
Okay.
In the first, like he did in the second half of last season, I think he's going to get found out in the first half of this season. And he's either going to have to remove that number 10 role, and I think he will have to, try to change tactics, move to a more extra man in midfield or an extra man up front, but not a number 10. And he's going to try to have a maybe creative space in behind. So I just think Maddison's impact in that Tottenham team
Going to be lesser.
is going to be lesser, not because of Madison as a player,
Just the system.
but because of the system and the evolution of the team.
Fair enough. And I think for me, it's basically the same in terms of the system rather than the player in my decision to go with Dillit. I think in that I think it's just it's funny because he comes in as a very promising signing, but so did Varane, so did Lisandro Martinez, so did
Man United, man.
but that's exactly what I'm saying, right? I think it's the system rather than the player. Like I would have like the centre back, the plug holes that we were talking about. I would have even loved Dillit at Liverpool. It's not about the player. I just think the system that exists here. You look at it in any position right now. I think going to United is just relative career suicide right now. In terms of if you just look at the recent history, right? You look at an Anthony, you look at Jadon Sancho, you look at any transfer, right? Like Van de Beek, like who even is he now? Like where does he even exist? Like it's just hard.
Who does he play
Mason
for?
Mount, like Mason Mount, I even forgot. That's what I'm saying. It's just obviously this is like it's a Liverpool fan.
It's biased, bro. It's biased.
It's not, but is it though? Like because can a United fan also say that their business or rather their signings have actually been successful? If you take out a Bruno Fernandes, who in the last 5 to 7 years has actually been a successful signing for you?
Martinez?
Do you consider him though? Because he spent, I mean, obviously injuries have clogged a lot of.
I think he's an excellent player.
I think he's an excellent player for Argentina. He's a World Cup winner for Argentina.
I think you will have him in your Liverpool team.
Again, I would have Dillit in the Liverpool team, like in the squad. I would the year Maguire left Leicester, I would have liked to have Maguire. Like he would have made the Arsenal team that year. What
Yeah.
I'm trying to say is that I just think the system, the entire environment, and that may change now that the Glazers are out the door and there's a new ownership inside with a new director of football and so and so. But again, like I just still don't feel like it's an environment where a player can progress, like really have good progress. Like if
I know who's going to be the player of the year.
I would still say Haaland. I think again, and that might be a little bit of a safe pick, but I still go Haaland for top scorer. And I think I say Haaland is because it's going to be similar to last year,
40 goals, 30 goals?
like all competitions.
No, Premier League.
Premier League? No, I would say roughly about like 27. I would say 27, 28.
But bro, he got 28 now and he was injured 3 months.
Yeah, but I think the similar stuff can happen. I think it's just, I mean, the fact that he got 28,
No,
he was injured for 3 months is absolutely absurd, right?
yeah. I think
Like-
he'll get top scorer.
like-
Don't get me wrong.
I think he'll get top scorer. See, again, it's very determined on the champions as well, because I think now that awards, the way they've become, I think they're very,
Yeah, of course.
they're very
of course.
dictated by who wins the league as well.
Yeah.
I just don't see another standout player in terms of like I choose Haaland because I think he's going to be top scorer and City are going to win the league rather than Haaland having like one of those Salah or Gareth Bale or Suarez or Hazard
Sure,
kind of
sure.
seasons. You know, like
Sure.
I'm not saying he's going to be a freak force of nature.
He's going to do what he does.
He's going to do what he does,
I get
and
it.
it's going to be similar to last year where basically City win, and because
Yeah.
of that he's going to win.
So
Do you
if-
think there's someone standing in his way?
No. I think if City win the Premier League, Haaland wins the player of the year. No
Okay.
doubt. And
But
purely
considering
because I
your
said Arsenal
predictions,
win.
yeah, considering your predictions.
And the thing is that Arsenal not. So I genuinely believe Arsenal is going to win the league. And because Arsenal don't have a Haaland and Arsenal have goals distributed throughout the team,
Yeah.
I think Arsenal this season to win the league, they need to have the best defense in the world.
Okay.
And to have the best defense in the world, who's going to be ever present?
You're gonna go for Saliba.
Saliba.
Okay.
I think Saliba will win the player of the year.
Do you see realistically Saliba having like even a relatively close season to the one Van Dijk had in 2019? Do you
I think
he's
to
gonna be up to
win the
those?
league, you need to be at that level.
And on that note of overall predictions, I think there we have it, the first episode of the Eye Test FC. Thank you for joining in. There are a lot of questions left to answer. A familiarity in the title race between a Spanish master and student, or does the Phoenix rise to the occasion? Does Chelsea move on from their thunderstorm of a transfer window? And now, who do United fans blame? now that the Glazers are out the door? Do Villa maintain the standards with European football in question? Or does Postecoglou chicken cross the road and move to the good side? With anxiety looming large, that's the first episode of the Eye Test FC. Thank you for joining in and let us know your predictions in the comments.